Hello and welcome to the AVForums podcast for Wednesday the 25th of November. The year is almost over and joining me is Assistant Editor Steve Withers.
You sly dog, you've got me monologuing.
And News Editor Mark Hodgkinson.
My God, you've gotten fat.
I'm not sure whether those are quotes or not. Thanks to these guys who gave us 5-star ratings. Ben Elgar said, fist-class podcast. I think you meant first-class podcast there. I don't have thousands to spend on AV systems, and I don't like writing on forums, but I've been listening to this lot for years. Very entertaining. Thank you very much, Ben. Pingu98, entertaining and informative discussion with all things cinema and commercial AV. You're not afraid to play devil's advocate and hold realistic facts against manufacturers' hyperbole. Yeah. Menko Bar, I think I'm saying that right, said, since I subscribed to this podcast, I've learnt a lot about AV. What, this podcast? Thank you for an hour-long funny lesson. You're more than welcome.
Sergeant Zim, a long-time listener, you've helped me avoid making another early adopter mistake on the TV front. Keep up the good work. So glad to be of service there.
Witch Doctor Ash says, up-to-date AV news with the occasional rant. I can't think what they're talking about. Who he's talking about there, Steve. More like you're listening to a few friends discussing their favourite hobby, unlike a lot of alternatives that are dry and boring. Thank you, Witch Doctor Ash.
Mag Tunes says, thank you. Well, he actually did quite a bit. So thank you, Mag Tunes, for your lengthy comments. A bit too lengthy to read out here. And finally, Matty's30 said, been an avid listener to this podcast for years. Best AVForums podcast.
It's Fist Class Pidcast.
Fist Class Pidcast. There you go. Thank you very much. We've read you all out. That's everybody up to date. Thank you very much for the 5-star ratings. Like we say, it helps us get up the charts, get on the front page on iTunes, and be noticed by other people and get more people involved in this hobby that we all love. And if you're new to the podcast, welcome along. We hope you enjoy it. So, Mark, tell us about what we can win in the current competitions.
3 really good movies. Well, 2 really good movies and 1 alright movie. All on Blu-ray. First, we've got The Lady Killers, the original, which is open to all members and closes on the 27th of November. Then we've got Edward Scissorhands, again open to all members, and that one closes 3 days later on the 30th of November. And The Close Encounters Blu-ray, which is active members only, and that's the 7th of December closing.
Close Encounters, can't beat that, and it looks really, really nice on Blu-ray as well, doesn't it, Steve? It's quite a nice package, and the packaging as well. Over quite a few films, the catalogue films from Columbia, they all look nice in that packaging, and all had excellent transfers. I'm thinking A Taxi Driver and a couple others off the top of my head. Steve?
Certainly, any one of those films you mentioned, Phil, would be better than Sony/Columbia's initial slate of Ultra HD.
Yeah, sorry, we did that last week and you missed it.
I'm just mentioning.
You wanted to be on holiday. You don't get to do both.
You don't get to rant, Steve.
No, you don't get to rant. You can rant if you come on the podcast, or you can go on holiday. You choose holiday. Any winners, Mark?
No winners. Not this week. Everyone's a winner who visits AVForums, of course. So. In a wider sense, yes.
Let's move things on swiftly. We're leading up to Black Friday, because Black Friday is the Friday after Thanksgiving. It's traditionally an American thing. It's been brought over here to the UK, and I noticed that the big retailer that originally brought it over, which was Asda, which is owned by Walmart, which is an American brand, they brought it over, but they are not doing Black Friday this year. They've had enough of it.
They had a lot of negative publicity last year, didn't they, with people rampaging through stores and
with Polaroid TVs.
Riots.
Polaroid TVs. I'm sorry, it's not worth getting a black eye over. No,
even if they're giving them away, don't bother. No, it was definitely an American thing, and I suppose also partly because of Amazon, I guess, as well. They also do it, don't they? It's become a massive. I mean, I've been talking to you over the last few weeks. I happen to have been to quite a few press release launches and met quite a few manufacturers, and they are all gearing up for Black Friday. It's become as big a bigger deal here as in the States, and tying in with Christmas, it's a sort of a second peak. In terms of sales for them.
But you see, quite a few retailers would say the opposite, though, Steve, and certainly, some meetings that I've been in with retailers who have mentioned Black Friday, and they see it as a negative because everybody expects a shed load of money off stuff on Black Friday. They'll say that, and that's them done with the Christmas shopping. They then don't go back and buy anything or buy the big ticket items towards Christmas.
Maybe it's not so good for retailers and good for manufacturers who shift lots of units.
Black Friday lasts about 2 weeks now, though, doesn't it? It's not a one-day event. You have the week leading up to Black Friday deals, and then a week afterwards.
Well, I mean, 5 years ago we didn't have this nonsense, did we? It didn't happen over here. It's very much an American thing. It's been imported. It was Asda that imported it. Funny enough, they're turning around and saying they're not doing it because of the bad publicity and all the rest of it. You got to think as well that maybe it was a drain on their sales. Maybe True. It was.
Also, the publicity last year and the negative publicity last year was very selective. I mean, it seemed to be the same store. and it was always from a very, very deliberate angle, so you couldn't see that actually there were only about 20 people there anyway. I don't think it was quite the mass chaos and people punching each other up in the face for a TV that it was made out to be. I mean, most people buy online, just get it cheap from somewhere online anyway. So I don't know. I can. What makes me? Well, I mean, I think you mentioned it, Mark. It goes on for so long now. You're going to have Purple Thursday and Cheeky Red Monday, and it keeps on going through until Christmas, doesn't it?
Yeah, Cyber Wednesday.
Is it not Cyber Monday? I think it's
Cyber Monday.
Cyber Monday. Yeah. Sometimes we champion the consumer and say yes, we should be seeing discounts and all the rest of it. But actually, if you look at, I think the TV market's a prime example, even though they're fighting over Polaroid TVs. The battle to the bottom, it does nobody any favours, and then events like this, where they're basically giving stuff away, doesn't really do many favours either, does it? So I'm struggling to see where the plus points are with Black Friday, Mark.
No, I'm not a big fan. If it wasn't for the fact I've got a trial Prime membership running out on the 4th of December, I probably wouldn't take any interest whatsoever. But there might be a few items that I can get for Christmas presents. But I bought something for myself last week without even the thought that Black Friday was coming up. Probably a device that might be discounted, but I just don't care.
You've got to be pretty lucky to win these things as well. I mean, I'm taking like Amazon as a prime example on, sorry about the pun
intended,
and online. And then if you look at the shops, you got to queue up, get in there, fight to get what you want, or you're online and it's a bit of a lottery as to whether you're successful in bagging that bargain or not.
Yeah, because there's only a limited amount of these really good offers available. So unless you're like super lucky or super fast with your refresh button, you're going to miss out anyway. So you just end up wasting your time. Time is money. Things are cheap enough anyway.
I was going to say TVs are so cheap as it is.
There's such low margins on things now anyway that and the competition is so heavy online that things are fairly cheap anyway.
Just getting into the festive spirit. It's rubbish. It's all rubbish.
I'm sure there is good things to be picked up, and there will be good deals available. But they're just headlining. Everything else will just be end-of-line stuff they're just trying to shift, or stuff that's not selling in the first place. If
you manage to bag a bargain, good luck to you. It's not something I'm going to do. Normally, I'm sorted by a bit now, and actually, I am kind of sorted for Christmas now. So I tend to get out of the way early. I don't know about you, Steve.
What I do is I don't buy any presents for anyone. That way, I'm not worried about it.
that is a good policy, Steve. Fail safe.
At least you're honest. At least you're honest.
Presented their Christmas lists on Friday, so.
I mean, the best thing ever invented was Amazon gift cards. Sorry, family. That's what you're getting this year.
Yeah, and I'd be happy it was in your family as well. That's all I want.
Yeah. That's definitely the way forward.
Otherwise, you just get bought something rubbish, don't you? That you don't really want.
No,
definition of a Christmas present.
Friends and family listening.
Mark, it's the thought that counts, isn't it?
No.
Let's move on. We talked about the Hisense XT910. We're not going to bang on a bit because we're going to get in for a review in the next few weeks. I noticed it's gone back another week there, Steve, in terms of possibly the review sample, but it is coming through. We talked about it last week. You weren't here. You're the only one here that's actually stood in front. Well, I did at CES, but I didn't pay that much attention, to be honest.
I do like the irony of you guys talking about something that none of you had seen.
Yeah, well, there was lots of talk around about it, wasn't there? I mean, a new brand and all the rest of it. And, the forums, I mean, there's people on the forums claiming it's the best thing since sliced bread, and nobody on the forums has seen it. There seems to be quite a bit of hype behind this TV. But you did stand in front of it. You've had a bit of play about with the menu system and so on. So what did you think?
From my limited experience, I'm quite impressed. I mean, you say there's a lot of hype. And in fairness to Hisense, they haven't been doing any of the hype. I think the hype is kind of self-generating itself, which I guess is the kind of hype you want. And that's mainly because, at least on paper, in terms of specifications, it looks like a really, really solid TV. And it's at a really, really good price. So, you're thinking 10-bit panel, VA, 900 nits peak brightness, HDR support, HDMI 2.0, and apparently they're going to be an upgrade to 2.0A next year. You've got direct LED backlight. It is curved, so, whatever. But, looking at the specs sheet alone, it's not dissimilar to, the JS9500, basically, but for a fraction of the money.
Which is the Samsung, for those that are not up on model numbers.
The Samsung Jet, which is their flagship. It beats
it on paper, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks awesome. And having seen it, albeit briefly at the launch, it did look very good. I mean, it reminded me, in fact, I've got to be honest, it reminded me a lot of the JS9500. One thing I will say is at the launch, they had it on like a special stand an upright stand on a sort of a pole, which is not the standard it comes with. My one comment about the actual unit you get is it comes with a kind of a weird stand that puts you at quite a steep angle, which they seem to feel is ideal for viewing. But unless you've got a very low TV stand, I don't think that's the case. No, you could always put a book or something underneath the legs at the back.
I didn't think it was that steep an angle.
Photograph you look at. Some photographs it looks fine, others it looks quite steep. Now, I'm not quite sure until we get it in, we won't really know for sure. That's not unusual because obviously Panasonic have been doing the same thing with their TV.
Sony had the monoliths.
Well, yeah.
And Sony with the monoliths, yeah. So it's not the first time this has been done. And I guess it depends on how high your TV stand is to start with. And mine's actually relatively low relative to the viewing seating position, so it might not be so bad. But yeah, and it's interesting. Although obviously you could always wall mount it. It's got 4x400 Visa mounts anyway, it's standard, so you could do that. I had a little play around with the remote control. Had a little look at the controls on it. The smart platform is relatively simple, but it's certainly got iPlayer and it's got Netflix 4K. It will have Amazon Instant 4K soon, and also it can support YouTube 4K. So in terms of accessing current 4K content, excellent. You had a full CMS in there, 2 and 10-point white balance control. So again, obviously, we don't know how well they're going to actually work, but they're there.
Work.
Yeah. So in that sense, you can calibrate it. It had everything. It was quite a responsive menu too, which is nice to see compared to some of the other systems this year. So yes, and Philips, of course. So all in all, everything so far looks good. I think in terms of specs, in terms of price, in terms of the features on board, in terms of the picture quality that I saw, and in terms of the available calibration controls, I can't fault it. Obviously, we'll have to wait till we get one in for review in a week or two. But so far, if it is as good as it looks, then I think Hisense have got a killer product here. And they're going to be selling them faster than they can make them.
I think we need a little bit of tempering down on the expectation level as well. A little bit here, Steve. I mean, some people will get carried away, and some people have gotten carried away in the forums in terms of, thinking that this is the next best thing since sliced bread. And actually, there's no such thing as a perfect TV. And sometimes when you get hype building like this, and then something comes to light, like people can see banding or there's DSE or whatever, then all of a sudden it's the worst thing since sliced bread. There has to be that tempering there, doesn't it? You have to keep realistic expectation levels.
Yeah, I mean, you just mentioned banding there, Phil. It's got a direct LED backlight, as has the JS9500, and that had a bit of banding. So those kind of things could be present. Obviously, we just won't know till we get one in for review. We need to do things like measure the actual size of the color gamut, because there have been some conflicting information regarding that. But yeah, I mean, what I will say is I don't think I've ever seen such a positive response on the forums to a new manufacturer as we have to this particular product. It's been quite remarkable, the kind of response and the enthusiasm amongst AVForum members
I think it's
a new name in the marketplace, which is good, I think.
I think, Steve, some of the rub of that is because recently we've been saying goodbye to a hell of a lot of brands. So it's nice to have somebody new to talk about.
It's true. I mean, this year we've lost Toshiba and Sharp.
Yeah.
We're basically down to the big four of Samsung, LG, Panny, and Sony, with Philips kind of TP Vision re-entering the marketplace in the last couple of years. So yeah, a new name in the marketplace is good news. I think coming in with a decent product and good pricing again would drive some competition, which is also good. You don't want to end up in a situation where we've only got like 2 or 3 manufacturers left, because that kind of will diminish the amount of competition we get.
Well, it does, yeah. The other thing that we mentioned last week as well, Steve, was the fact that I think what surprised people is that Hisense have come in at a reasonably high level in the market in terms of not just price, but also in terms of features. I mean, it's a fully spec TV, the 910. It's coming in at $2,000. It's definitely ruffling the feathers of the big boys. Whereas I think a lot of people, myself included, when we first heard of Hisense 2 or 3 years ago, we thought that they would be in the £400, £500 price bracket to start with, to build their brand. Yeah. But they're doing it the completely opposite way. Yeah,
it was interesting. If you talk to them about it, they'll say, well, and you've already mentioned this earlier on in this podcast, Phil, there ain't any money in the bottom part of the market. Margins are too tight. There's no money to be made anyway. But also, they regard themselves in China, in their home country, as a premium brand. We may not be familiar with the name here, But in China, they're a premium brand, and they want to position themselves as an equally premium brand in the UK, albeit with some competitive pricing, of course. But I think that's the right approach to take. I don't think there's any point just charging down the bottom end of the marketplace, because that's been tried before by Toshiba, for example, and even Panasonic to a certain degree. So I think their approach is quite sensible, and they're also not trying to, despite all the excitement that's been generated by this recent article and the launch of the XT910, they themselves are being quite, not overselling themselves. They're not trying to promise the world. They're just trying to generate some good word of mouth and organically grow. They're not going to go straight up and try and compete with Samsung, for example. They're just trying to quietly grow their business in the UK with some decent products and some good pricing. I think that's the right approach to make.
Yep, so it'll be interesting to see when that comes in, and I think we're hoping for the 321 Dusty Bin TV to come in from them as well. Probably
now that is mega cheap, isn't it?
Well, $499. It seems to be competing with the sort of $799 major brands, so it'll be interesting to see how that one fares out as well, Mark. So that one will be coming, hopefully arriving this week. So review should be about 14 days from now. If you put that down, we should kind of hit that, I think. In the meantime, you have had a look at the Fire TV. It's finally turned up. I've never known a PR company to do a launch and then run out of stock so quick as their PR company did.
Slightly ironic with it being Amazon as well.
But you got it in now. What's your first impressions? You only just got it out of the box a few hours ago.
It's been plugged in since Friday, but I haven't had a great deal of use until this morning. First impressions over the other one is it's quicker around the menus, really, really fast. It's very zippy, so it's got obviously an improved processor on board. And other than that, it's pretty much the same deal. Obviously, all the content's the same. The great advantage, of course, is we've got 4K Ultra HD streaming via Netflix and Amazon now. There's been one of 2 apps added since we last reviewed it. It's like it's the UK TV Play services and what's it called? The ITV Hub is just launched, and so there's one of the 2 new apps to go at. So I've had a look at Netflix and Amazon 4K this morning, and slightly disappointed to note, although I did know this already, there is no 24p mode in the user menus, and the vast majority of what Amazon sends out, they send at 24p. I know for a fact, having analysed the streams through other sources. So you've got 1080p, sorry, you've got 4K at 50 or 4K at 60 hertz, or an auto mode, which just goes to 60 hertz anyway. So we've got jittery video playback. Now there is a developer mode you can open up just with a couple of button clicks that cycles through some unavailable resolutions through the user menus, which includes a 24p mode for both 4K and 1080p. So you can actually set it to that before you go in to watch whatever you want to watch through Netflix or Amazon and get better playback. It's not altogether smooth because it's not. When we say 24p, what we're talking about is 23.976 frames per second in actual fact. Obviously, 24p is a bit more catchy. But it seems to be doing it at exactly 24p. So there's a jitter every 40 seconds or so. Not so noticeable on static scenes, but when it's panning, you'll notice it. It's kind of a frame skip.
Yeah,
drop.
there were. I used to see the odd, particularly Region B, always Region B actually, Blu-ray that was actually at 24p exactly and not 23.9, was it 92?
976, isn't it?
976, thank you.
Yeah, there is the odd bit of content out there at 24p exactly, but not a lot. Most of it is 23.976.
Yeah.
And anything that comes from the US is that for sure. Still early days, and it's a great little device, and it's got loads of key services. But unless you specifically need to upgrade to 4K, then there's no need to go and rush out and buy a new one if you've already got a Fire TV. And I'm disappointed that the 24p modes aren't available. I've contacted Amazon this morning to see why they aren't in the user menus, or why they can't even get it to automatically switch refresh rates, because that is in Android 5.0 as part of the operating system, which is what the Amazon Fire TV is based on. So hopefully we'll get a response and they can do something about it. Because at the moment, it's just slightly. You got that micro stutter, the 3.2 pull down. It's really noticeable, particularly on Netflix. It's not so bad on Amazon at 60 hertz, but on Netflix, there's a real jitter to it, and it puts me off.
Mark, the people that are going to be most interested in this Fire TV box, and essentially you should be sending it to me, is people with 4K projectors.
Yeah. Why projectors and not televisions?
Well, most TVs have got built-in apps, haven't they now? So a lot of them have.
This is true.
HEVC
Yeah, this is true. I'd not thought of that. Yeah, not being a projector owner, that's true. Yes.
So projectors, they don't have the apps and that kind of thing. But ideally, it's.
Well, I'd say in that case, if that is a concern and you're not bothered about Amazon and you're only interested in Netflix, then the Shield Android Shield TV, NVIDIA Android Shield TV is a better option because it has got 23.976 available in the user menus, and it works nicely. Otherwise, I don't know. I'd be tempted to hang on because if assuming as a projector owner you're a bit of a videophile, then you will notice the stutter. So I'd be tempted to hold on and see what else is going to come out. Although you can't think there'll be a lot of 4K players that's going to have Amazon on. There'll be this and probably just the Roku. I don't know whether NVIDIA are going to land it or not. I know they're trying.
So if you want Amazon and Netflix, then go with the Fire TV. If you just Netflix 4K for your projector, get the Shield.
Exactly. In a nutshell.
Okay, cool. Let's move things on. And another announcement that Steve was at to have a look at Sky Q.
Indeed. Which had been trailered for quite some time, but at least a couple of weeks they've been saying, a big announcement coming, and we're all thinking like, it better be 4K, because if it's just an app or something, everyone's going to be pretty annoyed. And when you got there was a giant like marquee they'd built and everything. It must have cost quite a bit, this launch. So you kind of figured it's obviously something relatively big, and I think it was big ultimately, although the mention of 4K only came right at the very end. It was a single sentence at the end of the launch, just saying that the new box is Ultra HD 4K ready, and they'll be launching a service at some point next year. That was it. That was literally it. I mean, there was a bit more information we gleaned from them later, but on the whole, they were generally avoiding talking about 4K in any detail at all. I mean, what they're presenting, I don't think is anything revolutionary. I think pretty much everyone else has been doing it for some time now, and they're playing catch up to a degree. But the platform itself, it certainly looks slick. It's basically designed to give you access to as much content as possible, both in terms of broadcast, but also catch up and recorded content, and also to give you access to more TVs and more devices attached to Sky. And so I think you can do up to 3 televisions and 2 connected devices at one time, so 5 in total. The box itself is a 2 terabyte hard drive. What was it? Was it 12 tuners?
12 tuners, yeah.
Yeah, so
a lot of tuners
about there. A lot of tuners. And the box itself is about half the size of the old box. It looks a lot sleeker, a lot more modern. The new remote control with a swipe feature, and we'll have voice control added next year. There'll also be a new app for it. And Sky Q will actually sit alongside the existing Sky Plus and Now TV services. So it's not going to replace them yet. I mean,
it has to do that though, doesn't it? Because this is going to be expensive. This is a premium service.
Yeah, it's a premium service, no question about it. And obviously, I think ultimately it will become the only service available, but they can't just make everyone move across instantly.
Well, if you think about the box, right, 12 tuners, 2 terabytes storage, that's a £400-500 box right there, retail. You know what I mean? So they're not going to be giving the box away for free. So when they've done this in the past, when they added the 1 terabyte box that I had and the 2 terabyte box and so on, that was £399 to get that box. There wasn't any discounting or anything like that went on with it. So this is going to be expensive right from the start. And you're going to have to buy the box. And there's not just the one box, the Q Silver. There's also the mini
Q
boxes.
Minis, yeah.
That'd be £100 a pop, probably.
Exactly, at least, because they're not going to be cheap.
They wouldn't talk pricing at all at the event, or packaging, or or whether they're going to be, how they're going to deliver this stuff in terms of when you buy a Sky Q Silver box. I think they call it Silver box, along with Sky Q mini boxes. Will it be part of a Sky Q broadband service? Because there was also a new router. Thank you. Which would turn the minis into hotspots, Wi-Fi hotspots. Yeah, so we had no idea about all this stuff yet, but I mean, you're right. I can't imagine it's going to be cheap.
And with 9 million subscribers, they don't need to subsidise this either. Existing subscribers, they don't need to subsidise this. This will be a premium service. They'll get away with charging quite a bit of money, I would have thought.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of the box, the actual specs at time of launch, in the press release said it had an HDMI 1.4.
Now we see. I think
was misleading.
Yeah, well, I think everybody's getting carried away with this because it's Sky that's providing the service here. It doesn't. It doesn't have to be 2.0 or
doesn't have
2.2.
to be. It doesn't. Can they do a 4K at 50 hertz 1.4? I don't think you can you?
No, you don't. No, you don't. But there doesn't need to be this panic that it has to be 2.2 and 2.0 because it just has to be 2.0.
I think
surely it has to be 2.2 to get past the TV's HDMI input.
Only if it asks for it.
Yeah, is it not? It's not device. It's display. Sorry, it's actually source, isn't it?
Yeah, it's source. It's source that does it. So I mean, I've got a 4K projector here at the minute, and I can put anything through that, and it's accepting it because it's not. It's the source material. So if I had a 4K Blu-ray, it'd have to be 2.2 because it'd have to talk to it and say, "Are you compatible? Can I play on you?" type of thing. But if Sky are handling the content, they don't need 2.2 unless they want copy protection.
I mean, I think there was a lot of people getting carried away. This service hasn't even launched yet. It's not launching until next year. So, and I'm sure Sky have thought about this in terms of how to deliver 4K content. So let's not get carried away. When I asked them the question, they said, it will do 4K. It'll be upgraded next year.
Yeah. And that's all they're going to tell you as well. And, there wasn't any interview stuff or anything like that because they weren't going to sit down and tell you anything in an interview because they want to save that to next year. This was just basically so BT aren't getting a run on everything with their Ultra HD service. This is Sky saying, well, this is coming next year, it's all fine, dandy, it's going to do this and that, but we're not talking about anything else other than promoting what this should be.
Exactly. It's definitely a holding card press announcement, isn't it? Like, we've got all this stuff, don't worry, don't go rushing off to BT because we're going to be doing it too. But we wait to find out how they're going to deliver it, how much it's going to cost and when.
Was there no indication of when?
No.
Early
I mean, even Sky Q was like, it'll launch early next year and 4K service sometime next year. That could be next November. Could be a year, You don't know yet. You just don't know. But certainly in terms of the service that they showed, it looks slick. It kind of delivered what people have been asking for in terms of how the platform should work and accessing content, recommendation features, that kind of stuff. So, it's delivering all of that. In terms of the technical specs, well, we'll have to wait and see. Yeah,
but again, if you got Netflix, you got Now TV, and you got Amazon, do you need Sky Q? Unless you're a big sports fan, I think you're better suited elsewhere. Are you not?
That would definitely be my opinion.
Yeah, I wouldn't be invested in all the multi-room boxes for sure. I'd just buy myself a dedicated streamer and not, and use something else to access whatever I wanted to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I gave up Sky 18 months ago now. This did not in any way make me think, I need to subscribe again. Because I'm looking at this and this looks like £100 a month. Easy.
Yeah. My bet is it's going to be $399 on the hardware on the most expensive package. Which would be, I don't know, £110 a month. Yeah,
I think it'll be about that, £1,200 a year.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see what happens next year because, Sky have had not quite a monopoly, but certainly they've had a near monopoly in terms of sporting coverage on the big stuff for some time. And it's been a world where broadcast was key and everyone's happy to get satellite dish. Now we're moving into an internet delivery platform kind of paradigm. And, are they still going to be valid next year?
Yeah, well, the big question was the 4K service. Is that going to be over the air or is it going to be IP-based? Which I don't
know, do we?
I don't think anybody even asked that question, did they? Or did you and get a blank face? Or
no, they weren't going to answer that question.
No.
Like I said, they weren't talking, aside from saying it's coming next year, that they would not say any more about the 4K service. In fact, when I tried to answer questions, we're like, is this going to be a 4K question? Yeah, okay, well, we can't say any more than that. So, okay.
Right, really? Well, that kind of lets you know where things are really then, doesn't it? Because it's going to be well into next year then if that's the case. And like I say, I mean, one time, not in the too distant past, I would have been all over this. Quite a big Sky fan. But then compression issues started. The movie channels became unwatchable just because of the compression that we're using. I mean, any dark scenes just became a blocky mess.
Yeah.
Unbelievably bad. And then they did the same with sports. Sports have started to leach the bandwidth there as well. You're not able to put a satellite dish up, are you?
No, but I wouldn't anyway, I don't think. I'm not that bothered. As long as we get Ultra HD Blu-ray, we'll be all right.
So that's what you're pinning all your hopes on. And if you look at Sony's release schedule...
all my eggs in one very leaky basket.
You are going to be watching the Smurfs 2 in 4K. I'm really jealous of you, Steve. I really am. What a terrible lineup that was. It really was. It was quite funny that Warner did that whole tie-in thing. It was part of the Voodoo news story that was US-centric, but it mentioned what titles Warner were going to have on there, and that's their lineup for Ultra HD Blu-ray. Yeah. And it's a far better
Slightly
lineup.
Better.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to have to live on the big blockbusters, isn't it, for its first 6 months. There's going to have to be Spectre and a few other big titles in there. Star Wars has to be there.
Yeah, a lot of this is going to rest on Disney's shoulders, I think. Because they've got Star Wars and Marvel.
Yeah.
So if they can put those out on Ultra HD Blu-ray, then that would really give the format a boost. But if they're not that bothered, then it's going to struggle.
Yeah,
because it needs those big titles.
Yeah, I mean, just look at DVD. I mean, DVD came out in 97, but it didn't really shift until The Matrix was released in 2000.
99, yeah, 99. That was the first really big million-seller disc, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the one that really pushed. Because I didn't buy a DVD player until that disc came out. Because I was still of the Laserdisc's better.
Yeah, I remember.
I spent a fortune on Laserdisc. No, I'm not going to DVD.
Yeah. Got my first DVD player in March 1997, and I had a DVD of Canada Board of Film or something, animation shorts. That was my first DVD. And then I got, and then I got a friend who lived in the States, because remember they were only selling Warner titles.
It was only
5 or 6 Warner titles, only available in certain cities in America.
Yeah.
I had a friend who lived in New York, so I got him to go down and buy me Michael Collins, Blade Runner, and a few others. Posted them over to me. And also, Columbia, Sony, had released a couple of titles, one of which was In the Line of Fire. So I bought that. And that was, my first watching an anamorphic DVD on a widescreen TV, because I had a widescreen TV. And that was within 5 seconds of putting that disc on, it was like, yeah, sod Laserdisc. We're moving on now.
Yeah, and then
massive difference.
If you look at Blu-ray, things happen quite quickly with Blu-ray in terms of the big titles like Star Wars and Indiana Jones and that kind of thing. Came very quickly to that format. So you've got to think that with 4K, if they want that to be a success, I'm starting to talk like Steve. If they want that to be a success, then they have to have some big hitters straight out of the box, I think.
I guess we'll hopefully find out more in January.
Yeah, well,
blimey.
So are you going to buy the Smurfs 2 and your player as soon as you get back from CES then?
No, I'll probably give Smurfs. Was there anything at all in that Sony lineup I'd be interested in getting? Not really.
No, even the titles you think, well, they've looked at it and said, well, that'll sell quite well. Will Smith title, but it's Hancock, so that's not going to sell very well. Yeah. And Spider-Man, well, unless you've seen the rebooted franchise, which I haven't, I've deliberately stayed away from it. There's nothing there that really stands out, no.
I actually watched Bad Boys 1 and 2 over the weekend, because they were released on... Actually, Bad Boys 2 had never been on Blu-ray before, so it was a...
All right, it's available now, is it?
Yeah. You have to buy the two together, but it's available now. So I watched them back to back. All I can say is Martin Lawrence must have the best agent in Hollywood, because how the hell did he get star billing above Will Smith in Bad Boys 2, when at the time Will Smith was arguably the biggest star in the world? It must have been some kind of holdover deal from the original Bad Boys movie, when at the time he was better known as a film star than Will Smith was, who was obviously a TV star at the time.
Has he worked since Bad Boys 2?
Well, Martin Lawrence?
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's what I mean. Even at the time of Bad Boys 2, his career was on the wane. How he got star billing name first above Will Smith, God only knows. That guy must have the best agent in Hollywood, because that's just ludicrous.
Yeah.
And it's also quite funny watching the two films. You see Michael Bay's style change somewhat from relatively low key, flashy, slightly MTV-ish Bad Boys to way over the top Bad Boys 2.
He almost becomes a parody of himself.
He is a total parody of himself. He's got the 360 degrees, the low angles, the helicopter flying overhead.
Super slow-mo.
Sorry?
Super slow-mo.
Super slow-mo, really gratuitously over-the-top shots, like the one where they're having a gunfight and the camera's just going around and round and round the room. I mean, it looks cool, but you're thinking, like, that must have been expensive and difficult to do. I think it was, at the time, it was like 120 million it cost, back when that was a lot of money. Yeah, but anyway, they're quite good fun, though. I quite enjoyed them.
You got to say, one thing with him, right, is he does put his favourite cars and stuff up on screen. He does light stuff fantastically well, and to be honest, he does think out of the box when it comes to camera angles and using the camera or a crane or a dolly or, like you say, a 360 degree. I mean, the films might be naff, but as a spectacle, they're up there, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you've seen it, but at the end when they're driving that Humvee down and just destroying a whole village as they go down down the hill, trashing this this slum area in what's meant to be Cuba. It's just so over the top. They're brilliant. A really good car chase though, with the guy pushing the cars off the back of the truck at them. That's quite good fun too. In a Ferrari.
Oh yeah.
He's driving a Ferrari.
In the freeway, and he's on the transporter and he's shoving them off onto the. Yeah, I remember that now.
Oh, no, it was good. There was some. Obviously, these have been recently remastered, presumably for some future. Again, either of those would have been better launch titles than Smurfs 2. I had a bit of a weekend actually, or week rather, because I was off. I also watched the new Sony remastered Fifth Element, Leon and Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula with Atmos soundtracks, and definitely in the case of particularly Dracula and the Fifth Element, the new restoration and remastered prints did look a lot better. You could really see subtle detail, improvements in detail.
Yeah,
So,
but it doesn't do anything about Keanu Reeves' English accent, though, does it?
that's dreadful. But I'll tell you what, though, I mean, even in 5.1, I always thought it had a fantastic soundtrack. Dracula. It's a really, really active sound design. There's constant sounds around you the whole way through the film. That was fantastic in Atmos. Really good. So top mark to whoever did the redesign on that one. Really good. And I guess those will also be, at some point, Ultra HD releases.
Right, you would hope, seeing as they've gone to all the trouble.
Yeah, quite.
I mean, that was another thing with Sony. Where's Lawrence of Arabia? You would have thought that would have been the star title for Phase 1. Because that was an 8K to 4K, wasn't it?
Yeah, so that's going to look stellar in 4K, isn't it? Whereas a lot of other stuff won't look. I mean, guys, I mentioned this in the forums, but they're absolutely right. A lot of these 4K transfers won't actually look that much better, I don't think, for various technical reasons.
In terms of resolution, yeah, because I mean, you just have to think of something like Sleepy Hollow, which, it's deliberately shot with Vaseline all over the lenses. Not literally, but it has a very soft look, and there's a lot of different looks. Spielberg blows out a lot of the highlights and stuff like War of the Worlds and Saving Private Ryan, really blowing out and aggressive looking prints and stuff. As long as we see it as it's intended. I mean, the resolution isn't the whole story and never has been, and as calibrators, we'd always put resolution at about number 4 on the list.
Yeah, after other things.
So, it's not the be-all and end-all resolution. The big thing with Ultra HD Blu-ray is going to be the wider colour spaces to DCI, hopefully. Along with HDR, when it's done correctly, it looks sublime. That's where the payoff is with this new format. It's not necessarily resolution. I think because we call it 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray, a lot of people automatically think it's resolution is the big number one thing. Well, no, there's more than resolution, and it's the other things that added to the resolution, which is going to make it a really must-have format. Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. But as you say, Phil, Lawrence of Arabia, on the other hand, because it's a 65mm print to begin with, negative to begin with, that should look absolutely stunning in 4K.
I can't wait to see the big stuff that has been done. I mean, Warner's did a whole thing recently where they did a lot of 8K scans of 65mm prints, 70mm prints. Did a huge restorations of, I'm trying to think, there was The Wizard of Oz, there was Gone with the Wind. It was also done at 8K, wasn't it?
Yeah, they've done quite a lot of the three Technicolor stuff. Ben-Hur, Panama 65.
Oof, that's good.
Not Panama, sorry. Panavision 65.
Yeah, that's going to look something.
Speaking of which, not Ben-Hur, but I did watch quite a lot of stuff last week actually. Spartacus, new remastered disc, and I actually had the old disc, so I was doing side-by-side comparisons. I had a bit of time on my hands, and it's
too much time on your hands.
The difference was staggering difference in amount of detail in the new Blu-ray. Absolutely staggering. So if you've got Spartacus in the older release, get the new one. It's a night and day difference.
Yeah.
Night and day. Whereas it was subtle differences with, say, Fifth Element or Dracula. It's night and day difference with Spartacus.
Definitely. A lot of the stuff on the forums is correct. I mean, when you're talking about resolution only. But I guess, what we're talking about when we talk about Ultra HD, we're not just talking about resolution, you're talking about wider colour gamut. You're talking about a more stable image. I mean, just look at an HD versus an SD image. Even if you're sitting back where you can't really tell the difference between an SD and an HD image, the HD image just looks solid. There's more to it. It just looks, what's the word?
Better.
Yeah.
But even comparing a 4K to a 1080p stream now, then it looks. But even on a smallish TV, I had a 43-inch TV here last week, and even comparing the 4K streaming on that compared to the 1080p from, I think I put the Roku in it, and it looks quite a lot better again. Even though it's it's just a better. You're starting off with a better image, so that even regardless of screen size and the actual resolution, it just looks that bit better.
Yeah, and of course you got to add in your bit depth as well. So we're moving up to 10-bit.
Yeah.
That just makes a hell of a difference in terms of gradation, color stripping, and that kind of thing. You're thinking about sunsets and so on, where you got so many different tones. Because you got a wider color gamut and the higher bit rate, it just looks so much better. It's so much smoother. There's more to it than just resolution.
Definitely. It's a good job too, because no one would buy it otherwise.
So when you're watching the Smurfs too,
it might be out musty.
At least you got the different shades of blue. You're not going to get any gradation errors, are you? Color strip.
Yeah, there'll be no band, no kind of in the shades of blue. It'll be nice and smooth.
Yeah, that's it. There you go. You see. Positivity, which I guess, just before we finish up, because you're doing some comparison work, which we're not going to spoil the article at the minute, Mark, but you're looking at 4K Netflix versus Blu-ray, and it has been mentioned a few times, if 4K Blu-ray didn't or wasn't on the horizon, you wouldn't be upset with Blu-ray, would you?
With streaming? Yeah, with Bluray itself?
Just with Blu-ray itself, in terms of quality.
No, it looks great.
Absolutely not. I mean, like I said, I watched quite a few Blu-rays over the last week, and without a doubt, they all looked stunning. I mean, I was sitting there thinking, looks pretty good. I've already got, immersive audio. I know there are lots of things you can add and improvements to be made, and that you've just mentioned, Phil, but good old-fashioned Blu-ray is still a bloody good format.
Yeah, I mean, it still blows me away, and this is the reason why it's in a separate room, and I only use it very rarely for testing and reviewing and that kind of thing. So it doesn't take the impact away. But every time I sit in front of my scope screen and I'm looking at a projector I've got in for review, or the JVC that sits there most of the time, and you watch an image, a scope image or a 185 image, because of the way I've set it up, there's not a huge difference in terms of image size. It's just image width. But you're sitting there and you're looking at that, and it's Blu-ray, and you just think, that looks damn good. That looks superb, properly calibrated, so you're getting, the full range of the image, the full dynamic range. But you just look at it and you think, well, yeah, I mean, 4K is great, and it looks stunning. I've got the Sony in there at the minute, and I put Canada footage through that I've shot myself, and I've got a few more clips working in 4K now, and you look at it and you think, yeah, that's absolutely stunning. But still watching Blu-ray on that kind of screen size, whether it's E-shift up or native 4K upscaled, but it just. Like you say, Steve, you think sometimes you pinch yourself, because we remember CRT projectors and the first digital projectors.
with an NTSC Laserdisc on a big screen.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, and you think how far we've come in 15 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was 2000. 2000, I had a barcode on my ceiling. And we're 2015 going into 2016, and night and day difference in 15 years. It really is in terms of quality. And we're all moaning about, you read the forums and we're all moaning about 4K this and 4K that. We are so lucky when it comes to quality.
And if you think about it, not only have we got this incredible improvement in quality, but at a fraction of the cost. So it's win-win, isn't it? Really?
Oh yeah, tell me about it. I mean,
how much money you spent?
Bad Boys on Laserdisc, right? I bought it on Laserdisc, 50 quid. US import, 50 quid.
Dear God.
I don't think I paid 50 quid. Who were you getting your disc from? I think it was
Laser Enterprises, I think. But
I think I used Ken Crane's. Anyway, but yeah, you'd pay top dollar, literally, for the Laserdisc to be imported from the States, and then you'd and like I said, that was not even 480 lines, was it? It probably wasn't quite close to that. It was 400, I think.
Yeah.
How much Laserdisc?
You see, the thing was though, at the American side, when you think about their broadcast TV at the time, which was NTSC, which was really bad, Laserdisc was such a big jump, such a huge jump, even over VHS. You were doubling the lines with Laserdisc. It was such a big step up. But like you say, when you come to DVD after that, and it was just anamorphic DVD, like you said, it was just another big jump, and then Blu-ray on top of that. We are so lucky where we are at the minute, and I think we need to remember that when we're sitting complaining about, has it got HDCP 2.2 and...
yeah, quite. I mean, well, Laserdisc, the bit that it really pioneered was digital sound. That was the area where it really pioneered things. Because remember getting my first Dolby Digital Laserdisc would have been Clear and Present Danger.
Mine's was a Lion King I vividly remember that demo, which was in Leeds. It was a Bill Hutchison hi-fi in Leeds. First time I'd heard 5.1 from Laserdisc, and it was the Lion King, and I bought the Yamaha amp, the speaker package, the player, and the disc. Close to four.
I'm trying to think. I think Jurassic Park would have been the first DTS Laserdisc I got.
Yeah, that was the first DTS one I got.
Pretty sure that was the first DTS one as well.
Yeah, in the space of about 3 months, I dropped $4,000 on updating the Laserdisc player and the audio side, and then another $4,000 on a Pioneer widescreen 16:9 rear projection TV. It was the size of a piano. And then getting the guys to, because I was a top floor flat at the time, and it was a spiral staircase, so they had to get a special piano mover in to get this thing box up the stairs into the house. But when I'd done the deal on the TV, I got in the discount. I said, "You're going to throw in delivery, aren't you? And you're going to turn up and deliver it." Not telling them how difficult it was.
I remember getting, I think the second Dolby Digital Laserdisc I got was True Lies. And strangely, last week I read, because True Lies has never been released on Blu-ray, it's available as a non-anamorphic DVD. That's as good as it gets at the moment. So basically that's just one step up.
It's a Japanese anamorphic with
is there a Japanese anamorphic?
DTS soundtrack I've got in my collection.
But even so, in the US and the UK, it never got a non-anamorphic release. No, an anamorphic release, rather. I mean, non-anamorphic, which is barely better than Laserdisc. It's never had a Blu-ray release. And they're talking about the rumours, apparently, that it's going to be one of the first UHD Blu-ray releases. So it's going to like completely jump over Blu-ray.
Yeah, it's been such a long time since I've seen that now, and I think I've got fond memories of it. And it's like, do I go back and watch it now? Because it might.
I'm not sure that these days laughing at Arab terrorists is so funny. To be honest, I mean, even Cameron admits that probably that joke's wearing a bit thin now.
I think
mean, 20 years ago it was a different world, wasn't it?
I think that's probably one of the reasons as to why it hasn't surfaced on Blu-ray.
Maybe, but the Abyss is also missing in action again.
Well, maybe that's because it's the underwater terrorists that we don't know about yet.
Underwater aliens.
Alien terrorists.
Oh, I think there might be a film in there somewhere, you know.
There's a Daily Mail headline.
Anyway, so that's Sky Q.
Yeah, a lot of reminiscing on our part.
Yeah, so obviously that wraps everything up hardware-wise. We'll be back in a sec with movie news. What's at the cinema, Steve?
This week, Phil, The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. So we finally come to the end of the Hunger Games cycle of books. They obviously did the usual thing now, which is to take the last book, make it into 2 films, pad it out and stretch it out to squeeze a few dollars out of the audience. And I think it may have slightly backfired because looking at the box office numbers for the weekend, it hasn't done that well. Significantly, it's done a lot. It hasn't even done as well as the Part 1, which you kind of think wouldn't do that well because people are waiting for Part 2. But it hasn't done very well. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's made a lot of money, like 100 million, but that's a lot less than the original Hunger Games and a lot less than Catching Fire made. So it's been a bit of a disappointment in terms of box office. And I think people are just sick of being, I mean, I'm trying to think. Harry Potter did it. Yeah, basically, it's kind of thinking, well, the first part was mostly just people walking around, talking and built in all filler and waiting for something to happen. And then the second part, even in the second part last night, when I was at the cinema, the first 40 minutes, there's still a lot of walking around and talking and not much going on. Then the last 2 hours, last sort of hour and a half is quite action-packed and quite exciting. You feel in there somewhere there's one good film, but not 2. And you kind of got the impression Jennifer Lawrence was just really glad when it's over. I mean, her performance was okay, but I know she can deliver better performances than that. You kind of feel like she's like, can we just get to the end of this damn franchise? Just give me my check. I'll be off to do some proper acting somewhere else. It's okay. I think if you're a fan of the series of films and possibly the books, it works quite well as a conclusion. I like the fact that that they didn't just keep doing Hunger Games each film. There is a progression in terms of the story, and this is about civil war and revolution, and it's quite violent in places. It's very grim and dark in places, and it doesn't shy away from killing characters as well, which I like to see. And it gives you a reasonably satisfying conclusion to the story. So in that sense, it works. I just think it suffers from them trying to squeeze 2 films out of one book. Not as bad as trying to squeeze 3 films out of one book, and one very slight book at that. So I'm talking about you, Peter Jackson. But I think people are beginning to get a bit pissed off with this now. between Harry Potter, The Hobbit, this, and there's also the last book of the Divergent series is also being filmed as 2 books. It just smacks of studios trying to squeeze every last dollar out of their audience. And maybe we're starting to get a little bit of a backlash there. Because you'd have thought that the last film would have done really well because it's the conclusion and everything. But no, it hasn't done as well as it should have. Maybe that's partly because it's sandwiched between Spectre, which has been doing very well, and obviously everyone's waiting for Star Wars in a few weeks' time. So that may not have helped their case much either. But I just think it's just a certain degree of fatigue from the point of view of audiences now about this kind of stretching books across 2 movies.
Yeah, it put me off the one before this, Mockingjay Part 1 presumably. I quite enjoyed the first movie, and then when I heard what they'd done, precisely what you were saying, Steve, I heard what they'd done with this and split one book into 2 movies. It's just turned me off completely.
I really enjoyed
no interest in watching it now.
I also really enjoyed Catching Fire. I thought that was great. And yeah, I didn't even go into. I did see it, Part 1 at the cinema. But you're right, Mark. Wait till we get Part 2 and then watch 2 together. Because then it's going to be a long.
And it's too long,
half hours. Yeah. I think it would have been one. If it had just been the one movie, it would have been great because he'd have had a nice action packed and really brought it to a conclusion and been great, tight and well edited, but now it just feels bloated and overly long. But that's the way of the world, unfortunately. I mean, marketing and selling, getting bums on the seats is all that matters a lot of the time. And unfortunately, that sometimes overtakes the creative process. So I think Kaz gave it 7 out of 10 in his review. And I think he's probably about right. It's not a bad film. It's certainly better than the Part 1. There's some action and things happen in it. But I just felt, had it been one movie, it would have been a more satisfying conclusion.
Were they making it up as they went along?
Were they making up what in terms of the story?
Yeah.
They certainly obviously had to pad. I mean, there's loads of times when you just think that's just there to pad out the running time. Scenes where people are walking down corridors, the kind of stuff you would, if you were an editor, you would cut that out. Let's get to the point. Let's cut that scene out. That doesn't need to be there. It's like watching something where you cram in all, it's like watching a first cut of a film. When they do a first cut of a film, then they prune out all the unnecessary stuff, which end up being deleted scenes on Blu-rays and that kind of stuff. And they prune out the stuff to get to the story, get to the point, drive it forward. It's like watching that first cut where no one's pruned out all the crap.
Right, so Peter Jackson.
Well, yeah, I mean, The Hobbit.
There was a big story this week on The Verge, which was quite entertaining actually, because it had one of the making of behind the scenes things.
He says
where he says it completely made it up. They didn't know what they were doing. There was so little time and all the rest of it. Whereas they had 3, 4, 5 years of prep work on Lord of the Rings. For The Hobbit.
And obviously source material to work from in the first place.
With The Hobbit, he just jumped on, and it got to the point where he couldn't make it up anymore, so they took a break for 6 months.
Yeah, I'm getting the disc this week, and I'm looking forward to watching this documentary because it sounds like he's pretty brutally honest about it.
It's on that section is on YouTube if you want to see it, because
I don't want to. I want to watch it all in one sitting and actually watch the whole thing rather than take it out of context. But I totally agree. I mean, obviously not only that, but then they made the decision to go from 2 films to 3 films whilst they were in production, and there's large chunks of the second film. They're just padding it out, just trying to think, we've got to keep going for another hour here somehow. I mean, there's no question that 2 films was pushing it. Would have been a great 1 film, nice and tight, get to the point. 2 films, okay, maybe you could put in some extra stuff from outside of The Hobbit, from the Lord of the Rings appendices to pad it out. But 3 films was taking the piss. But
then he did that with King Kong as well. I mean, it was a love story to the original, but it took it too far. And even the cut down version, it was still 3 hours odd long. And then the extended version's even longer than that. And again, it was a lot of stuff that could have been, if you had a decent editor in there who was not going to be scared to actually cut stuff away and make it tight, it would have been a far better film. And The Hobbit, like you say, 1 film or even 2 films would have been super tight if it was just a lot of the stuff thrown away and it just got to the point.
Although I'm looking forward to seeing the extended cut of the 3rd film, because that is the one exception where I thought there seems to be a lot missing out of this one, where the characters are barely in it, or you see them for only literally a few seconds.
I watched it on the plane, and like you say, there's one character who's on screen for like 30 seconds, and you think,
I mean, literally, that's not even an exaggeration. I think it's about 30 seconds.
And there's some other little stories.
That's a major character from the second film.
And there's some story arcs there which don't pay off, because in the 3rd film, it's not until right at the end where something happens to that character and you're supposed to feel sorry for the character, and you think, well, I don't feel sorry because I didn't see there wasn't enough development of that storyline. You know what I mean? And there was lots of instances of that where they kind of forgot about stuff and then thought in the final, oh, we need to tie this up, we need to tie that up, and wind this up, and there wasn't enough payoff. And you think, well, there's such long movies, surely they had time to pay off and do a little bit more development work. But then when you see him in a documentary saying, oh, we were making it up as we went along, it kind of figures.
Yeah, it's a real shame. He dropped the ball badly on that film. And I think ultimately, I mean, okay, you can blame the studio for wanting to make 3 rather than 2 films, but he's the writer, director, and producer. So,
but you see, the context was that he didn't have the time because Del Toro walked as quickly as he did. He was
presumably they had Del Toro, the screenplay that he wrote with Del Toro.
Well, yes, that's what they had to work with, and the sets and everything else. They didn't have hell of a lot of time as such. So it was a bit of a mishmash of what had been pre-planned for their version of the film against what Jackson wanted to do, and he didn't have the time to do it. I think he had six months prep, which if you think it took 4 years for Lord of the Rings, 6 months prep, and you're prepping something where people are having to go back and rebuild sets and redo this and redo that, then there was only one outcome really, wasn't there? And we've seen that.
I think it's got other problems there as well. Too much reliance on CGI. I think that's partly because of the whole shoot it and hope and fix it later approach. So probably just shooting stuff and thinking, we'll sort it out later with CGI.
Well, that's what's his face. There's a bit where Andy Serkis, it says all he was doing as his second assistant director was shooting B-roll. There was a period where he was just shooting B-roll of people fighting. He didn't know what the context was and what was happening and all the rest of it. And then he said he felt so much better when somebody came in and said, actually, we're just going to take a year off now. we don't know what we're doing. We're taking a year off.
Yeah, I think it's going to. I'm looking forward to getting the disc because I think it's going to be an interesting. If they're genuinely honest about how it went down, then that will be an interesting documentary to watch. Because if only a cautionary tale for don't start huge productions with no scripts finished and no idea what you're doing, and don't suddenly just make a decision halfway through filming to make it into 2-3 films rather than 2, because that just seems like a recipe for disaster. Really.
It did make its money back though, didn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think I did a piece about how it made $3 billion, but it made $3 billion or nearly $3 billion, but you can consider it a failure, not financially, I guess. But then again, having said that, I think it cost nearly $1 billion. So even with $3 billion in the bank, that's not actually that much.
Yeah, it's just washing its face in a little bit more. Yeah. Anyway, so that's a Hunger Games Mockingjay and part 2. Kaz's review is up on the front page. It'll still be there when you listen to this podcast. Go and have a read of it. Also coming this week, opening up at the cinema, Bridge of Spies, Black Mass, and The Good Dinosaur. If you were to pick one, Steve, to go and see, I guess it'd be Spielberg's Bridge of Spies.
Easy to answer because I'm seeing it tonight. Bridge of Spies, yes.
Yeah, I've got to say it does look really good, and although I'm kind of sick of Hanks, he looks all right in this, and from what I've seen so far. So I'm not going to the cinema to see it. I'll see it when it comes out in disc.
I think it's Spielberg's first film since Lincoln, so it's been a few years since he's done a movie. So it had really good, universally good reviews in the States, and I'm looking forward to it. Black Mass, I was interested in, but it was a choice between Bridge of Spies and Black Mass. I decided, I'm a little bit sick of Johnny Depp, even though people say Johnny Depp is superb in Black Mass. I kind of got a bit sick of Depp over the last few years. So Bridge of Spies is the one. The Good Dinosaur, that's the new Pixar movie, where it's an alternative universe where the asteroid doesn't hit the Earth 65 million years ago and wipe out the dinosaurs. So I don't know. It didn't look.
That's the one I'll probably see at the cinema.
That's the one you're going to be seeing, Mark. Yeah. It didn't look very. I didn't like the look of it in the trailers.
It's got dinosaurs in it. It's a winner.
Well, yeah, it kind of just looked like I mean, obviously, I haven't seen it, so I'm judging this purely upon a trailer, which really didn't. And particularly coming off the back of what we're about to talk about on the Blu-ray roundup, it just seemed like a step backwards compared to what they've been doing recently in terms of films. So,
okay,
but that's on Friday too.
So Blu-rays, we've got Southpaw, Inside Out. So both of those reviews are up on the homepage right now. Go and have a look at them. You also got Roger Waters' The Wall and The Hobbit, Battle of the Five Armies. If you were to pick one, which one would you pick, Steve?
Well, Inside Out. Inside Out is fantastic. It's a brilliant film. It's a fantastic Blu-ray, stunning. Obviously, it's Pixar, so it's picture quality and sound quality are 10 out of 10 for both. The 3D is excellent. It's got loads of extras, and it's a really, really, really good film. It's easily the best film Pixar have done since WALL-E. So, for that reason alone, it's worth checking out. No question about it. Southpaw is fun if you like that kind of thing. Roger Waters' The Wall has an awesome Atmos soundtrack. Absolutely awesome. Haven't got The Hobbit yet, so I actually can't comment on that. But I've seen the film and I wouldn't bother. But
That was the
certainly,
last concert I went to. It was Roger Waters' The Wall.
did you go and see it?
Yeah, I did in Manchester. Yeah, a friend bought me a
Oh, right.
ticket. Unfortunately, I had a stomach virus, so I didn't enjoy it as much as I might.
Well, it looks it's shot with scope ratio, Phil. It beautifully. They filmed the concerts really well, and the soundtracks. I mean, it looks stunning. So lucky you, Mark. I wish I didn't go for some reason. I'm a huge Roger Waters fan, but for some reason I didn't go and see it.
It was an incredible.
Really regret not going there.
The sound quality was unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
Well, I mean,
and the whole show was just it was something else.
Was that at the arena? Was it?
Manchester, was it arena? Yeah, it must have been the arena. Yeah.
And it sounded good. They must have done some work there because
he bought all his own stuff, didn't he?
Yeah. But that is one of the worst sounding
I was right. I was right near the front, right in front of the.
Okay.
I wasn't up in the gods or anything. I was on the ground floor, right in front of the sound system. So it was pretty.
Oh, well, there you go then. But it's one of the worst sounding venues I've ever been in. Really, that and Glasgow's NEC, or the Glasgow SEC, it's called. Terrible sound. Anyway, moving on. New DTSX titles announced: American Ultra, Sicario, and The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. We just talked about. These are Blu-rays that have been announced, and I'm assuming that these are US releases.
Yeah. So the American Ultra US release, which I think is actually this week, that's going to have a DTSX soundtrack. Sicario, which comes out at the beginning of January, will have a DTSX soundtrack. And The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2 was actually mixed in DTSX for the cinema, which possibly the first I've heard of anyway. Now these are all Lionsgate movies, so this is only one studio that's actually doing this at the moment. So before anyone starts going, "Oh, it's here at last," it's just the one studio, and they're also the only ones that have done any disc so far, which is Ex Machina, currently the only, until this week at least, the only DTSX disc that's been released. And again, that's Lionsgate. So, but it's interesting that they're starting to talk about Mockingjay Part 2 being mixed for the cinema and DTSX and so on, but basically it's an open format object based mix, and I think that's part of DTS's approach, is to try and position themselves as being free of the license fees that Dolby would charge for Atmos. But
right, and these releases in the UK, would they be handled by the same studio or is it a distributor?
You see, that's the thing. Lionsgate, it might be different. I'm not sure because they're a smaller studio than they might. But
because Ex Machina in the UK is not DTSX, but
yeah,
it
isn't.
in the US.
No, they with their Atmos releases, they have been the same in the UK. So, be interesting to see what they do here with those films. You're right. Ex Machina wasn't, was it? It's only in the US that it had a DTSX soundtrack. I mean, it's a bit moot at the moment because there's no DTS decoders yet. And that's looking like, from what I've heard, the first sort of DTSX capable processors are going to be hitting stores. And these are going to be really expensive, by the way. There's all the really high-end stuff in January. And then end of January, apparently Denon and Marantz are planning to start upgrading their receivers to DTSX. And that will be filtered out throughout their entire range throughout the course of sort of February and March. So that's currently the plan, but that might be delayed again. I don't know. But currently late January, before we even have the ability to listen to DTSX anyway.
Okay, we were going to talk about the new Marvel series, Jessica Jones, arriving on Netflix, but we've run out of time. So you'll have to read Steve's review, which is going to get finished this afternoon and will be up on the site by the time you listen to this podcast. And that is it from the AVForums podcast for this week. My thanks to Steve Withers.
Where is my super suit?
And Mark Hodgkinson.
We get there when we get there.
Don't forget, you can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook, bookmark AVForums for latest reviews, news and video. And of course, like we did at the start of this episode, if you leave us 5 stars on iTunes, if you enjoy the show, obviously, it does help us climb up the charts, be seen on the What's Hot pages and so on, gets more people involved in the podcast, gets more listeners, and we'll read your name out at the start of the show if you give us 5 stars. I'm Phil, and thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you again next Wednesday.